Well, we've hit the top of the hour, so welcome to the webinar, everyone. Today's topic is building a culture of continuous improvement. One of the things I see in contact centers happening a lot is that a very reactive approach to customer service, where the same call comes in time upon time again, and there's sort of often an acceptance that that's just how things are, and not necessarily getting down into the root cause of that call, picking up with the challenge, and then going off and changing that, particularly if it's a problem that resides outside of the contact center in some other department of the business. So we're going to be fascinating. So we've got two great speakers for you today who've joining us for their second webinar with us. So I'd like to introduce to you Justin Robbins from HDMI and the ICMI. Justin, you're a community manager with the ICMI.
That's right, Johnny.
So you get to do all sorts of fun things like creating videos, creating great content for the website, and visiting lots of creative contact centers.
I do, and I absolutely love it.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Justin. We've also delighted to introduce to you Jenny Corner from Assurant Solutions. Jenny, welcome back to the webinar.
I'm glad to be back.
And you're going to be talking a little bit about building a culture of continuous improvement within Assurant. How many agents are there in the Assurant call center?
In this call center, including where I am in the two buildings, you're looking at around 600 people.
So quite a sizable operation. So we'll come on to your presentation in a short while. Just a reminder that you can get a copy of the slides, callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. That's going to be available later on this afternoon. If you want to get a copy of the slides now, log into our chat room. Here's the address, callcenterhelper.com/chat. It is in a separate window from the webinar, but a lot of people keep the two running alongside each other. Once you're logged in, if you'd just like to press this button here, and you can download a copy of the slides. We're going to go through a lot of detail, so it could be quite useful doing that. Once you're logged into the chat room, we do have a back channel and a chat going on, and there is a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates for the best tip. If you've got a tip, use hashtag tip at the start of your comment, or if you've got a question, use hashtag question, so we'll know which is which. So absolutely fascinating. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to now start off with a poll, and I'd just like to ask the question, do you measure first contact resolution in your contact center? So if you'd just like to vote on that, the answer's very straightforward, yes, no, or not certain. So if you'd just like to answer the question, do you measure first contact resolution in your contact center? I think this is going to be quite fascinating to see how many people do that. So let's have a look at the voting here. Let me share the results up on the screen. So we have 41% say yes, 52% say no, which is certainly a surprise. So let's just have a little drill down on that, and I'd like to put a question which we've been asking in the chat room, is what have you tried to improve first contact resolution in your contact center? So let's have a look at what people have been saying so far. Paul a bit earlier said we've created an online wiki type database which allows for better and quicker searches. Ian has said they're first trying to define first contact resolution and see how that could be improved. We've had Ian who said there's been lots of discussions with customers and advisors, which has given a lot of food for thought. As we were looking at within the customer service center, and this has brought a different response from the whole business. I think the whole approach of looking at that has been very valuable. And Dan has said automated IVR. We can send links to application forms and web pages to customer mobile devices, which encourages customers to use the digital channel. So it looks like that's quite a joined-up solution that joined-up solution that you've got there. So let's jump straight into the agenda. I'd like to pass the baton across now to Justin Robbins. And Justin, if you'd like to take us through your thoughts on how to build a culture of continuous improvement. Would you like to put your slide up on the screen?
Absolutely. You know, Johnny, when we were originally talking about this, I think back to my time in the contact center. So quick history about me. I started in my very first contact center. I was actually just 12 years old. I had a paper route, and the newspaper had invited some of us to come and make outbound calls in the evening trying to sell newspaper subscriptions. And really since that time at 12, I've grown up in call centers and contact centers. And if there's one thing that I've noticed time and time again is that contact centers, as you said, Johnny, earlier, we have this tendency to have the same problems, the same conversations, the same issues happen time and time and time and time again. And then when I think about that, I am taken to the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And if I'm being honest with myself, and maybe if we're all being honest with ourselves, it sounds a lot like managing a contact center every single day. And so before I really jump into some of my thoughts on what contact centers can do to improve this, I need to tell you a story about one Monday morning when I was managing a contact center. Now, what you need to know on the kind of the background history here is that for the month prior to this Monday morning, we had been putting this big initiative together around continuous improvement, that we were going to find all of the defects, we were going to find all of the places where we could stop having the same problem and the same conversation, whether it was coaching an agent, whether it was a certain type of customer complaint or a problem with the process. We were going to do something to improve it, and for a month we had been working on this. And this one Monday morning I came in, and it was the Monday morning, it wasn't the dreary Monday morning that most of us are probably thinking of. It was actually a really great Monday morning. I felt like my team had adopted the ideas of continuous improvement. I was feeling really good when I walked in the door. And as I entered into the contact center, I immediately knew that something was wrong. And for those of you managing contact centers, you know what this feels like. You walk in and it's just noise. You don't see anyone standing. It's a lot of talking. It seems like your supervisors, your managers, every single person, even you know, someone from marketing or the custodial staff, they're all on the phones. Everybody's taking calls. And so I did what any contact center manager did. I'm running around the floor trying to find out what's going on. And sure enough, one of these issues that we had been working all month to prevent had appeared, but not even in a small way. It had become a major issue for us. And I just felt like all of this work, all of these things that we had done were just flushed down the drain. And so I needed to step out of the office. I needed some time to breathe. I needed some time to think. I was so frustrated and so upset. And so for me, it's taking a drive. I don't know what it is for all of you, but for me, something about getting in my car and driving through the countryside, it helps me think. It just calms me down. And so that's what I did this one Monday morning. And I was driving through the mountains of Pennsylvania, and I was starting to feel really, really good about things when alongside the road I saw something absolutely terrifying. And it was so bothersome to me that I had to pull my car over, and I wanted to take a picture because I never wanted to forget what I saw, because what I saw was this. And now I've blurred out the names and I've disguised the faces to protect the not so innocent. but a company paid money, a lot of money, to have a billboard that said no call centers, just quality local service. And here I am, the person who's been doing this since I was really a boy, have built my entire career on call centers, and here's a company that is saying no to call centers. And the truth of the matter is that this billboard was successful for them because our customers, the general population, there is a growing perception that call centers aren't going to provide a quality experience, that call centers are just going to be repeating yourself and the same problem time and time and time again. And so this billboard, I saw this billboard now, it's been 5 years since I saw this billboard. And I've been thinking about this for 5 years, and I feel like this webinar, Johnny, is a really great place to share with all of you what are some of the lessons that I've learned in the past 5 years on what we can do to prevent billboards like this from popping up in your town. And to me, it really just comes down to one question. Do we honor the promise? I realized that one of the biggest challenges that my contact center was having is that we were responsible for keeping the promise that someone else made. Maybe it was the promise of the marketing department, or we have a really great product that promises to solve people's problems, or a number of other promises that our company makes, but in a lot of cases, it's not the contact center that's responsible for this. And when I think about what do we promise as brands, what's most important to us, the biggest driver for us having the same issues pop up, having the same conversations, is because we're not keeping our promises. And so if we really want to be about a culture of continuous improvement, I think what we really need to be focusing on is, are we going to keep, for every single promise that our company makes, it's our obligation as the contact center to keep it. So are we going to do that? So then the question probably comes to mind, well, how do we do that? Who's responsible for making that happen? And I start to think, well, whose responsibility really is it? Because the contact center often, we're not the one who made the promises, so does that mean that we're responsible for keeping it? But the answer is yes, we are. So why else could this be a problem? Why else could it be a disconnect? Well, as you mentioned, Johnny, I get to spend a lot of time in contact centers. I've run a lot of contact centers. And what I know about us as contact center leaders is we are really good at fixing the symptoms of a problem. We are really good at putting out the fires that pop up every single day. But so often we don't know the root cause. We don't have visibility into what is causing this problem to begin with. And so every single day it's just on repeat, the same things happening again and again and again. So whose responsibility is this to change? Who's the one that I think should take ownership? Because this disconnect is happening not just with marketing, not just with our product groups, but it's even happening within the walls of our contact center. And maybe it's a disconnect between quality and coaching, or a disconnect between workforce management and the director and the budget and the needs of the contact center. But we've got to be very aware of the disconnect. So who's responsible? What's holding us back from keeping our promises? Why are we in this cycle of repeat? To be honest, it's us. It's the leaders of the contact center who are limiting the contact center's own potential. And I want to be very, very clear here, because as someone who's been a contact center leader and as someone who works with contact center leaders, I'm not saying that we're intentionally doing this. As a matter of fact, I think it's the exact opposite, Johnny, and everyone here, because I know for so many of us, you also started as an agent, or you came in as a team leader or a supervisor, and you've grown. And you've grown in this environment, and you've probably been doing what you've been doing for quite some time. And so we just do what we've always done. We know the familiar. And what we don't see is beyond. We don't see the potential of what can we do to really put our contact center in a more strategic light to get to preventing the root causes of these things that are on repeat time and time and time again. So I want to share just a few things that we as leaders of the contact center can do to step out and really grow the potential of the value that we provide to our organizations. And it all begins with what's our mindset. What are we thinking is our job every single day when we walk into the walls of the contact center? And not just our job, but our supervisors' jobs, our team leaders' jobs, our agents' jobs. What's our job? Because what I would argue right now is for many of us, and maybe you don't hold this perspective, but for many on your team, they are viewing their job as an obligation. I have to be at my desk at a certain time to to handle calls or chats or emails or text messages or whatever's coming through, and I have to answer these calls, and I need to get a certain score on my quality, or I need to achieve these certain metrics or a certain handle time, and it all becomes about obligations, things I have to do. It's my job. But the reality of service is that it's a changing landscape. I don't know if you've stepped outside the contact center recently, but the way that technology is rapidly evolving and the pace of change is increasing, and customers are increasingly in control of the conversation. Our job is not an obligation to meet some basic metrics. Really, it's an opportunity to serve. It's an opportunity to serve our customers. It's an opportunity to help our organization be more nimble and be more effective with our resources. And really, it's an opportunity to provide 3 different types of value back to our organizations. And to me, to get into this idea of really being about continuous improvement, we've got to get beyond the day-to-day firefighting. We need to be asking ourselves, how do we, as the contact center, position ourselves as a strategic asset? And so I want to talk through 3 things, three things that your contact center either is or can be doing. But when you do all 3 of these things, you will find that you move into a cycle of continuous improvement naturally, and it's going to be built into everything that you do. And so the number 1, kind of the first level that contact centers provide value through their organizations is cost efficiency. If we go back to the very first contact centers, it's why we were created to begin with. And it's all about fulfilling the mission of the contact center in the most cost-effective manner, right? We do more with less. We pull together all of our resources because it's more effective for us to answer contacts, to serve our customers in that way. So that's the first thing we have to be looking at ourselves as a contact center, is are we being efficient with our resources? It's built into who we are. It's something that we have to be delivering on if we want to be providing value to the organization. The second piece is around customer satisfaction and loyalty. So this is the second way, the second level that contact centers provide value. So do we provide that distinguished service? Are we delivering a bespoke experience that's improving customer retention and transforming our customers into advocates? And so you want to be looking at things like, are you surveying your customers? Are you doing voice of the customer programs? Are you measuring retention rates with your customers? Are you finding out why they're choosing to not leave? They're choosing to leave your business or to not work with you anymore? And so that's the second thing we have contact centers. If we want to be built around continuous improvement, it's about having proactive methods for measuring, are our customers satisfied? Are they remaining loyal? Are they spending with us? Are they continuing to get our services, or are they not? And if they're not, what's causing that? What's causing them to leave? What's causing them to be dissatisfied? And what do we need to put in place to make it happen? And I'm going to stop there for a minute, because I would believe that most of you are thinking, we deliver cost efficiency, and we focus on providing customer satisfaction and loyalty. But these are things that are within the contact center's control. These are things that we manage in our day-to-day. And what I would argue is that the things that are on repeat, and as I mentioned, those promises that we have to keep that are being made by other people are happening outside of the walls of the contact center. And so this third level of value, the third opportunity, and where I think there's the biggest place for us to grow as contact centers, is what's known as strategic value. Think for just a minute about what happens in your contact center, about all of the valuable insight that you have. Your agents are the closest touch point to your customers. They know what your customers like and don't like. They know what they're complaining about. They know what they're asking for more of. You have a wealth of data available at your fingertips about customer preferences, behaviors, trends. But are you keeping that information within the walls of the contact center, or are you strategically sharing it outside of the organization? So, for example, at one of my contact centers, we had combined a number of different entities, and we handled hotels, we had amusement parks, we had restaurants, spas, golf courses, and we also acquired a campground. And as my agents, I believed in having omni-skilled agents, so all of my agents handled all of our different call types. And as my agents started handling these campground reservations, we noticed that we had a number of complaints. A number of complaints from customers who would check in for one night and then the next morning they would be gone. And maybe they were supposed to stay a week or more, but they would vanish in the middle of the night, and we didn't know what was causing our customers to leave. And so we did some insight, and we spent some time talking to the campground, and we went to visit. And I remember walking through one particular part of the campground, and we were right along a fence, and the ground started to rumble. I thought there was an earthquake happening, but the ground started to rumble, and the next thing you know, a freight train comes roaring by 5 feet on the other side of the fence. And I asked the person that I was there with, I said, how often does this happen? And they said up to every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we were booking people to camp on the ground in a tent on the other side of this fence. No wonder they were leaving. And so what we found from just this a little bit of sharing information, of analyzing a problem, and working outside of the organization, we were able to prevent an issue, educate our customers, and retain more campers in that particular situation. And whether it's marketing, sending out a promotion that you didn't know about, whether it's a change to packaging on a product that you weren't made aware of, or a shift in a policy that your team didn't get notification on. Whatever it is for you, these things that we complain about them causing problems in our contact center and causing these cycles to repeat time and time again. What I would argue today is it's not a matter of someone intentionally doing it to us, but as us as contact centers not strategically positioning ourselves to marketing, to product development, and saying, this is all of the insight that we have. These are the problems that we're experiencing. How can we work together to solve this issue? Because just as you as the contact center want to provide a great experience, so do your peers throughout the rest of the organization. And so the question then becomes for us at these three levels, what can we do to measure and improve cost efficiency? What can we do to look at those problems that happen time and time again that are preventing customer satisfaction a little bit? How we better measure when they're happening and put in a plan for improving them? But what I would say most importantly, how are you sharing beyond the walls of the contact center the value that you provide, the insights that you have, and the ability that you can deliver in a changing and affecting the contact center? And so then I stopped to think for a minute. What would happen if every single day we focused on delivering strategic value to our organizations and didn't have the same problems, and we could focus on innovating, we could focus on elevating the customer experience, we could focus on coaching and developing our people. And when I think about organizations that actually do that, they're the ones that we read about in books. We hear about them on television, and we aspire to be like them in the way that we build our programs. And so then what would it take for you to do that, to have that strategic approach, a plan for continuous improvement, and focus on everything you do, delivering value in one of three ways? Thank you, Johnny. I will turn it back to you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Justin. Some real big food for thoughts there. So I think some great insight there. And I certainly think delivering strategic value back into the organization is actually very important. We get an awful lot of customer feedback, which is absolute gold dust for the rest of the organization, for marketing. I met one organization that was able to then feedback product information back to their product developers, who were then able to improve the product rather than sort of trying to double guess how customers are using it. They got first-hand feedback from the call center, or the contact center. So it was very, very useful in terms of getting that level of feedback. So let's just pop up our next part, which is the poll. And so the poll question we've got is, what percentage of calls that you handle are a result of failures in another department, which is one of the things that Justin talked about earlier. So of your overall call volume or contact volume, what percentage would you say is the result of a failure in another department? Is it 0 to 9%, 10 to 19%, 20 to 29%, 30 to 49%, or 50% plus? So it's quite an interesting one. We often pick up things in the contact center, as Justin said, that aren't our fault. It's broken promises that we may not have made in the first part. Justin, would you care to hazard a guess at what the most popular answer is going to be?
You know, I think it's going to depend on the organization, but I would argue it's got to be close to a third. So I think it's going to be that 20 to 29 or 30 to 49 group. Well,
let's have a look. I think you've got your finger on the pulse there, Justin. The most common is just under a third, 20 to 29%. 29% of our audience say that. 21% say it's between 30 and 49%. For 15% of our audience, is more than half of the calls are a result of failure of another department, and only 15% say it's less than 9% of the calls as a result of failure of another department. So I think that's quite an interesting one. I think there's some food for thought there about whether we need to be feeding more back into those other departments about some of that causes of failure demand there. And what I'd also like to do is I'd like to jump across into the chat room, and I'd like to ask a question in the chat room. In fact, Jenny, perhaps if you'd like to, this is a question you wanted to find out about workarounds.
Okay.
Jenny, do you want to describe the challenge with workarounds?
Oh, right, yeah. So, when obviously I think everyone experiences this, especially in the contact centre, where if something does go wrong, sometimes you need a fix there and then. So you will come up with a workaround that can sort of make sure the customer isn't affected, that our service isn't affected. However, I feel that sometimes it can be frustrating if that workaround becomes the fix almost, or does the fix that you need sort of get to the back of the queue and other fixes take priority. And I suppose I'm just interested really to see, do other people find that in their organisations, or do they feel that sometimes, do they find workarounds a challenge, or it'd be interesting to see what other people's thoughts are really.
So we've put the question up on the screen. Do you find that once a workaround for a problem is put in place, the workaround stays and the root cause never gets addressed? So if you'd just like to type your response in there, I think Mark and Emma and Paul are all typing away there, so we'll do that. Just nice. I guess the challenge I see a lot of workarounds that tend to see, and then they often get put onto the website, and it sort of takes away the immediate pain, and so doesn't often get addressed.
Yeah, I think that the two things that I see here are the workarounds that we formalize and have that review process for. An agent discovers a way to improve something, and then they share it, and we put it into our knowledge base, or we put it onto our website, whatever it would be. And those, I think, it's in some cases they could be beneficial. They could be something that you decide to implement and move forward. To me, the scary workarounds are the ones that the agents develop themselves, and it enters the underground. They're the unknown workarounds, because to me, what I would argue, at least what I've seen, is the root cause that never get addressed is when our agents find a kind of this underground workaround that they're using, and we never identify that they're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there is a challenge to that. Quite an interesting little comment from Emma came in earlier saying, "I wish I could drive through the mountains of Pennsylvania when I'm having a bad day at work." It's
Come on over. Come on over.
But probably, Justin, you're probably thinking, "I wish I could drive around the country lanes near Cheltenham on your drive to work." So
I absolutely do. I really do.
Or hop on a train, maybe.
So let's have a look at what's going on in the chat room to the question about workarounds. Paul says, yes, I think we suffer from that massively, that workarounds tend to stay. Sharon very insightfully said, I think this is often the case, usually linked to IT development opportunities. So, yeah, the IT system says no, computer says no, so you work a way around it. Emma says, yes, the workaround often means the appropriate root cause data is not collected. in order to analyze and improve. Rav says, yes, that's certainly the case if you don't have a culture of continuous improvement. Dan says, yes, we also find this, but we're getting better at it. And Mark says, yeah, we're working with legacy systems, and that often means that workarounds become the norm. In fact, slow computer systems are one of those things that we do tend to accept. Good friend of mine, Paul Cooper, wrote one of my favorite articles on Call Center Helper called "Slow Computer Systems. It's Not Rocket Science." And I did some polls a little while ago where I found something like about half of the audience suffered from slow computer systems on at least a weekly basis. So it is something that we just roll our eyes and tend to accept it rather than actually going and working through. There's a lot of work to do it, but the rewards can be very, very important there. So there's a range of different opinions there. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump across to Jenny. And Jenny, if you'd like to share us some of the things that you've been doing within your organisation on how to improve the culture of continuous improvement. So if you'd like to put your slides up on the screen.
No problem.
There we are. Just go full screen.
Let's just have a look. There we go.
There we are. Fabulous.
Okay, so I just want to say that I'm really glad that I've been asked to sort of discuss these kind of issues and sort of things that we implement in the contact centre. It's quite exciting actually, because I think some people sometimes they feel the issue is that sort of the problem or the thing they want to sort of fix or change is that big that they don't want to sort of even, it just feels too big for them to handle on their own. So I think what I've learned is actually some of the smallest changes, some of those little quick things that you can put in place, even just to prove someone's sort of just a culture or an attitude actually can be a massive win. So I want to share some things that we actually do, and sort of I hope that gives, might actually help or give some people some ideas. So some of the things that, well, I put on here, small opportunities are often the beginning of great achievements, and I do believe that really. And yeah, we do have to deal with some issues. It would be very I wouldn't be an honest person if I said that we didn't. One massive thing that we deal with is because we're updating phones, registering phones, and the contact centre, we're sort of logging claims, is we have to deal with technology. And that, technology isn't a person. I can't take technology into a room and sort of speak to them and try and persuade them to work better or give them advice on how to work better. If it stops working, it stops working. And I think sometimes with that, you do feel a little bit like a firefighter because you're putting out the fire. You can't sort of predict if the computer isn't going to work or a payment system isn't going to work. And we do have to use technology to sort of log those claims. So I would say that is something that we do find challenging because you don't know when it could happen. So we've made sort of packs for our guys here with hints and tips, ways to sort of make sure that the customer doesn't know and isn't affected, and we're sort of making sure that we're looking after that. Just because something isn't working doesn't mean that the service has to sort of drop or we can't look after the customer the way we normally would. So that is something that I feel we sort of are working with constantly to get better at and finding loads of different ways to try and make sure we improve that all the time. Another thing that we sort of, because we deal with third parties products, so we have to make sure that our relationship with our partners is the best it can be. It's something we're really proud of at Assurance. We do have that great relationship. So just an example, if a product is recalled, we can't predict that. That is something that is out of our control if that is something that happens. However, again, we have to make sure that it doesn't affect our journey, doesn't affect our customer, and that we make sure that we have that relationship with our partners that we can guide our customers to go direct to our partner, or we can deal with it right here at Assurance for them as well. And we've felt that recently. We've had something where a product had to be recalled, and we had a relationship that actually meant that we could send the customer there and get that product replaced immediately. And the customer actually loved that service and the fact that we had our finger on the pulse and we knew what was going on without the customer even having to sort of speak to us or explain. I mean, I think really these kind of topics, I mean, I don't think you need to work in a contact centre, to be honest. I think you feel these, change is good and things go wrong and you have to deal with it and you have to try and be as proactive as you can. And I think this is something that doesn't matter where you work could actually help. So ways that we've sort of tried to build a culture of continuous improvement is something that we start with our leaders. We've started a workshop which we have a 5-step program. So I put a little picture there of part of the training there. So step 1 would be establish the content. So it's making sure that the idea of change that you've got to improve is it going to work? Is it needed? Then we've looked at sort of step 2, sort of unifying the team efforts really. So stating your intent, and this is bringing other departments that you may need to be involved, your resource planning department, your marketing department, or sort of our claims team, our complaints team, anyone that sort of needs to get involved and having a clear focus basically. What does good look like? And I ask my managers this all the time. So if they're doing a piece of coaching, what does good look like? If we're feeding back a negative message sometimes to some of our guys, what does good look like? What's the best thing that you can get out of that message, or the best thing that you can get out of that change? What is it what's the final goal basically? And this means that we're able to sort of monitor the process to sort of make sure that we're going in the right way, because sometimes you can get led off track a little bit like myself. I can waffle a little bit and end up somewhere else really, to be honest, and have to drag myself back. So this helps me a lot. And then sort of defining the tasks will be step 4, so prioritising. So sometimes you get changes in circumstances. We need to know our boundaries as well. And step 5 would be sort of revising it. The gaps, anything that's overlapping, have we checked it, sort of feeding back to people, re-looking at it all the time to make sure that we haven't missed anything off. We've done this with our leaders to make sure, 1, that we're all aligned, and 2, that you're not sort of scared to implement a change, because sometimes you've got an idea or a change that you want to put in and you haven't got a clue where to start, and it can be quite terrifying. And this really just breaks it down and structures it for you. And I found it helps me massively, especially someone like me, because I find that I have so many ideas. I'm on 110% all the time. I'm on full speed all the time. And I feel that sometimes I just need to be able to break that down and sort of speak to the right people. And on that as well, then my next point on here is we actually have a change team. We have people that are dedicated to support, especially people like me. We did a workshop where we found out what you were. So there was people, I was what was called an I, and my profile was I'm full of ideas, full of fast-paced, want to do things but can't always see things through to the end. Which, yeah, it was a little bit hard to take. I also struggled to take on that criticism. However, it is true, I have the idea, but you need what we call our C's, who sort of control it and plan it and look at it. So we have this team that sort of help you step by step and sort of guide you. And I think it's something that Assurant do brilliantly, and it does sort of get us, is this change even needed, for example, or is it a workaround, is it needed, all that kind of stuff. So it's brilliant that we've got a team dedicated to that. We also all get together in a room, people from all over the UK and Europe, and we discuss our changes. Because someone might be putting a change in their department, but we don't know about it, but that could actually massively help us. So, and they could be next door to me and I don't even realise they're doing that change. So it's to make sure we're all aligned. It's to make sure that we're all transparent, really. And you can steal each other's ideas, and you might think, wow, that might help us with our payment system, or for example. So it's a brilliant meeting and well worthwhile going to. One massive change that I've noticed in Assurant recently is our engagement with our senior leaders. So our senior leaders now actually meet with people from agents to managers to operations managers, and actually discuss our strategy, where we want to be in 3 years' time, how much profit we want to grow to, our customer, what our customer message is, all that kind of interesting stuff that sort of you feel like you're part of something, and you know why you're doing things. And you're also encouraged then, if you have got an idea, that you can go to these senior leaders. They are approachable. They do want to hear what you've got to say and what you're thinking, because we're the ones that are close to the customer, if anything. And it really sort of motivated me to sort of know that actually I am listened to, and that these changes are wanted. So that they're just some of the ones that I can think of on top of my head, to be honest. A couple of ideas that I implement in my area to try and improve things that maybe aren't working, or to find out things that aren't working that maybe I didn't know about. So the first one is the positive pot. So I'm going to be honest, it's something that is probably good about my personality and also not. I'm very honest. A suggestion box bores me. I also think it can lead to negative things. People almost put suggestions in there, but it's almost become the moaning box, to be honest. And that, I don't think that fixes anything. So I come up with a positive pot, and that was to encourage my guys to even just put a nice message in there, maybe to say, I love the way this person handles this kind of complaint, or this individual really helped me yesterday with this customer, or this manager helped me with a situation that I had. The IT department fixed my computer today, thank you. Just anything that is positive to put in there, but it's also an opportunity, I say, if you've got a problem, put the problem in there, but you're not allowed to put the problem in unless you can come up with a solution for it as well, an idea for change. And it really helps. There's a lot of thank yous in there, a lot of sort of, I should call it the love box really, but I think the
How many messages would you get during the course of a month in the positive pot?
So it does put a lot of love in the air, to be honest. There's people that, what I like to call unsung heroes.
Yeah.
So, you know, not everybody is a show-off. Not saying that I am, but not everybody shouts about what they do and how good it is. I love that, but some people are helping or putting changes in or coming up with ideas every day and you'd never know. And this pot, I would say probably on a month I get about 30 slips, little slips of paper in there that are encouraging or different ideas for people. And one of them was something that I actually implemented, which is my next point, which was the whole time mission. So what my guys actually found out is one of the biggest frustrations for our customers is being placed on hold, feeling, you know, that you're being passed to pillar to post. I think we've all been there when you just want someone to sort of speak to you or just to help you as quickly as possible or just to give you a better understanding of why something isn't working. So what we found out is that can be a frustration, hearing that hold music or speaking to 4 different people about the same thing and having to repeat yourself. So we have a technical support team, for example, and it's like Ron Seal, it's what it says on the tin. They're there to help you with technical issues with your phone, so downloading software or turning off Find My iPhone application, for example. Those guys are there to help you with that. So what I actually did was empowered my agents to deal with those quick wins, to be able to help customers with the top 10 reasons of why it was going to technical support. And what that meant was the customer wasn't put on hold. It meant that the agent was actually feeling like they were helping the customer. And therefore, the customer didn't have to be called back, didn't have to have a call back arranged. It was just, and we got that from the positive pot, and that became our whole time mission. We want to be able to give a fluid journey to our customers from start to end, where you ring up and we help you, and then you go away, and then you're happy with that service. And it's something we're really proud of, and it's something that really intertwines with that first call resolution. We also have a You Said We Did. So we have a massive board here where you give us an idea, and sometimes you can give an idea to a manager or to the company, and maybe that idea is used, maybe it's not, but you'll never know. And if it is, you might not realise, and if it's not, you might not realise why it wasn't. So basically, we are being, again, transparent with our guys that work here to say, you said this, and this is what we did about it. And it really, really creates a bit of a buzz. People feel listened to, and you'll be surprised how powerful that is.
And do you also go back to customers? If a customer says you need to do something or logs a complaint in an area, do you close the loop with the customer and say, 9 months later, when you called us 9 months ago, you said we ought to do this, and we've gone and put a new process in place for that?
There's got something that I'm going to talk about on the next slide, which is nearly on there. It wouldn't be quite as 9 months ago you said this, but we have realised that customers will make comments on the call, or actually give us ideas or talk about things with us that, because it's not a complaint, we're not actually realised that actually it's probably more valuable than a complaint. So we've actually put something in place which I'll touch upon in a moment. But we speak to our agents as well, our guys that are speaking directly to our customers, and we hold agent forums. We take them into a room and we say, okay, we've got the positive part, we want that positivity on the floor, but don't be scared to tell us how you feel about things either. So these agent forums are actually really productive, and it gives the guys a chance to sort of vent and talk about things that I think Justin touched on. So those scary workarounds that we don't realise are happening, and that we'd never know if we didn't speak to our guys. And you'll be surprised how many things come out of those meetings that I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. We can actually fix that by something really quick. And these really easy, simple steps. It's not always about, you need 12 IT members to work on this. It's going to take 18 months. It can be these just quick wins that actually make you so much more productive. And we actually created a first call resolution guide. One thing that I strongly believe in is you need to have fun. Our guys are here for 8 hours a day. We have high standards with our customers. We expect a certain level of professionalism with our guys, but we also want you to enjoy your job. You're here for 8 hours anyway. You might as well enjoy yourself. So we created a sort of almost like an FBI most wanted, like the top 10. So our top 10 queries, our top 10 wanted queries, and our top 10 wanted complaints. So you'll find that sometimes agents are dealing with the same queries over and over and the same complaints. So we want to sort of get rid of those and make our agents' journey much better and our customers' journey much better. So we created this sort of FBI most wanted, and then this first call resolution guide means that for these queries that come through, our agents are confident. They know exactly what to do with that customer. They know exactly what to advise. They are so much more efficient on those calls as well, with those complaints, with those queries that we have. Again, that improves our efficiency because they are just more efficient on those calls. They're not putting the customer on hold to find out what do we need to do, who do we need to speak to. They already know. And that in turn is just creating, we're watching our AHT come down, but also our CSAT scores, we call them, where we send out surveys to our customers and ask them what do they think about our service, rate us. We can see that's improving. It's getting better each time, and I do believe it's because our agents are empowered to deal with our customers efficiently, because our customers like a bit of chat and a bit of rapport building, of course they do, but we all know we don't want to be on the phone for a week with someone in a contact centre. You call, you've got something that needs to be sorted, and you want it sorted friendly and efficiently, and then you want to go back to your life. So it's something that we've put in place that we find is really helping our guys. So ways that we deal with customers getting frustrated over broken processes. So Shanti, this is something that you actually just touched upon really, so I'm glad you did. So because obviously companies we have to track our complaints. We have to, it's compliant. We have to make sure that we're sort of looking at our complaints. We have to make sure we're dealing with our complaints in a timely manner. But one thing that we're doing here is actually the feedback can be so much more powerful than having to get a customer to complain almost before we look at it. So I talked about firefighting earlier. You can have an issue, you can have a complaint, and then we try and resolve it when that complaint comes in. One thing that we feel strong about and we're sort of doing now is actually trying to avoid those complaints and solve and resolve those issues before they even reach that point. So we actually collect our feedback. So if our agent's on a call and they see an email address hasn't been taken correctly, or something hasn't been sent, something was sent by letter, not email, for example, for a customer, we're collecting that data. We're making sure that we're fixing those issues before the customers even realised, before the customers even felt that impact. And what we found is we want to sort of reducing our complaints, but we're collecting loads of feedback. Our agents are tracking that. If a customer makes a comment about a timescale that maybe they found quicker or would like quicker, we're tracking that and looking at that. We have an actual customer experience team that are going to be looking at that kind of information, which I think is fantastic, because what I find in contact centres is something happens and we deal with it quickly, which is great, but we're trying to stop that even happening now. which is brilliant. Our quick escalation process, so we empower our agents to deal, with any kind of issues, like I said, or FBI most wanted kind of thing, and try and do it efficiently as possible. But we always have a manager there to be able to deal with that escalation and to be able to speak to our customers to make them feel like, we want to speak to them, we want to help them. They're not just a number coming into a contact centre. Like what Justin was saying about that billboard. I mean, if I saw a billboard that said, we don't want contact centres, I mean, I would feel the same, to be honest with you. We want to make sure that we surprise our customers and they've actually enjoyed the experience. We also have things like, redress. If we feel there has been a service error, or we're not afraid to sort of look at that and look at gestures of goodwill for our customers. But we find from our feedback that it's not about money with customers. It's actually, it's actually the service. It's actually the people that they're speaking to. They want to feel listened to. So we have things that we can sort of come off our process, like a doorstop exchange. So if someone's not happy with our product, we're so confident in our product, our mobile phones that we offer our stock, that if a customer isn't, then we would offer them a doorstop exchange. We'd arrange for a courier to come to your home and swap that handset for you right there on the door. We offered things like rapid repairs, try and say that 11 times, rapid repairs. But to try and make sure that the customer, again, Mr. Customer, we understand that you're frustrated there, that something is broken down. We're going to make sure that we look after you, that you feel special. And the customer's perception, I do believe, is our reality. And we try and make sure that these changes are customer focused as well as company focused. And we try and make sure that what we're doing is simple, is efficient, and try and make sure that it works, basically. I know I talk at probably 75 miles per hour, but it is because I'm passionate about making sure that if we have these quick wins, that we can share them and that we can talk about them. So I just want to thank you for letting me share them with you, basically.
Well, thank you very much for that indeed, Jenny. Some great ideas there. I certainly love the positive pot. I'd quite like to see a photo of that one if we could. And certainly things like you said we did, I think are some wonderful examples. Right, we're going to do some quick top tips and questions from the audience. We've had a number of people coming through. We've got a bottle of champagne to win for the best tip or the best question coming through. We've had a question sent in by Emma, who said, how much responsibility should be placed with the quality monitoring function of the business when it comes to continuous improvement and root cause? Or should it be dealt with in-house within the call centre based on the management information provided by quality monitoring? Justin, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think when it comes to placing responsibility, we've got to first ask the question of how much can the quality monitoring team affect? And whatever is within their realm of influence or control, then I say we make them responsible for affecting it. If it's something that has to be dealt with in-house, then the responsibility has to come in-house.
Indeed. And Jenny, you mentioned that you had a change team. Is that the sort of thing that the change team would do?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, John, I think everyone's responsible for continuous improvement. I think every department will see different ways, right down to the agent on the phone, to me, we call it our quality assurance team, and the MI or MI team. But yes, the change team would look at, they're more a support function to help guide us and keep us structured and keep it going off track, basically, and make sure that we're getting all the support from the business that we need, more than sort of continuous improvement. They're the guys that would support us with that, if that makes sense. But I think we're all responsible for making sure the business is improving and coming up with ideas to improve us, definitely.
I was talking with a guy from a local authority, a local council, and they'd implemented a you see it, you fix it approach. They had a lot of members of staff who went out and they perhaps had they were in social care. They'd go out to an area and they'd spot a pile of rubbish lying on the street corner, and though it wasn't go and put that in necessarily in a bin. If you spot it, it's your responsibility to report that and get that put into the system. Don't just walk past and ignore it. So approach of taking personal accountability. That you may not be able to fix it yourself, but you need at least to be able to alert other people's whose job it is to do that. And they found a massive change as a result of that. Well, let's have a look at some opinions coming in from the audience. Mark said, we're in the process of linking our quality monitoring function with our complaints team, putting the two together. The thinking behind this is that if we can improve the feedback cycle off the back of complaints as an initial phase, the quicker we'll be able to identify root causes and therefore improve our first-time resolution. That seems like a quite sensible approach, Justin.
Yeah, it absolutely does. This is where my mind always goes: is what's the criteria on your quality monitoring, and what's the role of quality monitoring, and is it just to reduce complaints, or are you using it for agent coaching? Are you using it for other things? But having that direct link between the two and connecting what your quality is and the complaints that you're coming in, I think is a really smart move. Excellent.
Let's have a look at a tip. Emma's looks like being quite active. Emma says, we're introducing real-life customer case studies, a 2 to 3 page document to provide an in-depth customer journey with all the touch points of the journey shown, providing closing the loop opportunities for the departments without apportioning blame to individuals. So, Jenny, sort of not apportioning blame seems quite a key part of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we would look at sort of, they're talking about real life customers, so they actually look at actual case studies from customers in their company then. And then the touch point of the journey, providing closing. Yeah, actually, I really like that. I think it's a really good idea because it brings it to life. I think you can almost have what we call the happy path, where, if it was to run perfectly, this is the way it would look. But I think you look at actual real life, what's actually gone wrong, what's gone right, what can we do better, what can we do more of or less of. I think that's a really good idea. I really like that.
Excellent. Well, we've got a comment from Paul, who says, we operate our quality function using a voice of the customer quality model, which sounds very interesting. By collecting and analysing client satisfaction scores and the verbatims, we could steer our quality improvement teams to drive and measure improvement changes. We also brought our trainers into called calibration sessions to create bespoke sessions. Each session learnt then became incorporated in our induction program to remedy the issue. That looks like quite a nice closed loop there, Justin.
I love this for 2 reasons. One, by using the verbatim and the feedback from the customers, there's no perception of this coach or the supervisor likes me or doesn't like me, and that's why they're giving me this feedback, right? The customer doesn't know you, so that part's excellent. And what I also love here, again, about the verbatims and making it part of calibration and induction is that really it's becoming about behaviors. It's not just about achieving a score on a quality program, but it's about these are the behaviors that will ensure that we deliver a great service, bespoke experience.
And we've got one final comment in from Emma. Emma's been quite active today. It looks like she's hoping to win the bottle of champagne. He said, similar to what Jeremy was describing, we have a company-wide log for concerns that can be viewed on the intranet by everyone, which allows all colleagues in the contact center and beyond to have a voice. So it's similar to a suggestion box, but this cannot be logged without next steps and possible solutions. So it's don't just report the problem, provide a solution. This often gives those colleagues that may not speak up using other channels the chance to air issues they've identified. So Emma, do you like that next steps and possible solutions parts?
Yeah, I really like that. I really, really like that. I think it's a good. I think we should always. I think what Emma's saying is absolutely spot on. Instead of just sort of she's going down the same road as we are, there's always things that we can fix and things that we can make better and things that we can change. But don't moan about it. Let's think of some ideas of how to fix it. I mean, you'd be surprised how effective positivity and some good ideas can be. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really easy just to say, oh, that doesn't work. When you say to someone, well, how do we fix it? That can be a whole different conversation.
Indeed. Well, we've hit the top of the hour, so if you could just put into the chat room in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about today's webinar? We take all feedback very seriously. If you could want to watch a replay, that's going to be available callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars later on this afternoon. And thanks to all our speakers. I'm going to give you a quick mobile phone call in just a while. Thank you to Justin Robbins from HCI and ICMI. Thank you for joining us from the States.
Thank you, Johnny.
Jenny, thank you dialing in from Assurance Solutions.
Oh, no problem. I'm sorry about my webcam, guys. If I get invited again, fingers crossed, I'll make sure it's working.
We'll get that going. Wonderful. And thank you to all of our audience for joining. We'll be back online next Thursday at the usual time. Thanks very much. Bye-bye to you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.